Welcome back to Chow Time Pods. Your host, Red. I got a video today from BaggageClaim.
In recent years, I have become thoroughly convinced that feminism has severely hurt our society. It's done so primarily by selling 5 pernicious lies to women. So let's talk about those lies and let's talk about what impact each lie has had on our society. And at the end, I want to talk about...
Again, I just like bringing on experts and people that know better than me. Even if it's a woman, let's get her take on it.
Why feminism has been so successful in taking women ideologically hostage. Let's begin with lie number 1. Women can have sex just like men. This right here is the most dangerous lie that feminism has sold to millions of women.
Well, it's devalued women. Women have devalued themselves because of this lie, right? Them racking up bodies like nobody's business, right? Like the thing is, even the Chads of the world cannot rack up as many bodies as a regular woman. You know, like that's how crazy women have been racking up bodies.
Feminism is always aiming for equality for women, and in many ways they have achieved that. They secured the right to vote, to have financial freedom, as well as the right to work. But as the battles have been won and equality has been achieved, the fervor for more equality has blinded them, where even inequalities that are biologically built in now need to be destroyed. This inequality is most apparent when
every person that can't do what men do gets a little box so they can stand on and do exactly what men do.
Comes to sex. Sex is not the same for men and women, and it never can be because of the risks attached for each gender. Pregnancy, assault, and even getting killed are all real possibilities because at the end of the day, men are just stronger and more aggressive. And it's really hard to tell what...
Are we really more aggressive though?
Whether a man is going to honor you and take care of you because he's a good man versus a man who's just pretending to be a good man in order to have access to you. Previous generations solved this issue by recognizing sex as something very sacred because it has the power to create life. So they treated a woman's body and trust as inviolate and relegated this union between man and woman to marriage. Why? Because marriage offered a whole bunch of security that a casual encounter just couldn't. There was safety in the contract of marriage. The man was...
I mean, remember, for Asians, it's like your family gets vetted, you know, mates are chose for you in a sense. So you get a good mate in a, you know, you're not picking some random stranger that might screw you over. No, your family vetted these people. Like, this is probably the best chances that we can help find you, is to have the best mate possible. That's how people and families looked at it. Or at least my family. I don't know about, like, you know, people trying to profit or something.
Legally bound to his wife as well as to his children and had the societal and financial responsibility for them. This gatekeeping of sex was really effective because it forced men to have to work for that privilege through marriage. They had to prove to be worthy of a woman, to be worthy of someone's daughter. They had to be financially responsible, have a good reputation in their society, and show a willingness to step up to those responsibilities. Now, of course, there were instances of just terrible men pretending to fit the bill. But overall, the system worked really well in protecting women, but more importantly, forcing men to grow up. Now, fast forward to today, where in our society, one of the biggest problems that we're facing is that men seem to be caught up in this perpetual arrested development. Even well into their 40s and 50s, there are these instances of adult toddlers, and cities like San Francisco and New York have turned into Neverland, where people really just don't have to grow up.
I'm gonna go against this a little bit. You're just saying that men don't grow up, or is it because they don't want to be in relationships anymore? Because relationships aren't worth it. So it makes sense that most men in their 40s and 50s now, because they went through the biggest wave of feminism, which is the last 15, 20 years or so, that changed the full dynamics of dating. Social media, everything. So these men have learned and avoid the danger.
The combination of dating apps as well as the proliferation of hookup culture has ended that noble act of men courting women, and honestly turned...
Again, so it's Ben's fault. Like, I thought she was gonna be cool with this, and then she ended up this way, and it's just like, but why did men do this, right? Like, how is it on us again?
sex into a commodity. They have reduced sex down to a meaningless act. The push to have sex like men was aimed to empower women, to help them claim their sexuality and throw off societal expectations. But has it actually helped women? Aimed at freeing women, the sexual revolution has actually freed men to use women, all while telling women to feel empowered by being disposable. Like I said.
But again, it's only the few men that have access to all the women, right? I think I want to like her, and I want to agree with most of what she's saying, but there's definitely some areas I'm already kind of,
This is the most dangerous feminist lie. Unfortunately, it's not the only one. Lie number 2. Women had to fight for the right to vote, while men were just granted the right to vote. Yes, women had to fight for the right to vote, but so did men.
No, they didn't. See, this lady is just off. Women didn't fight for the right to vote. The government gave it to them because women didn't want the right to vote.
Voting is a pretty novel concept. For centuries, societies have been organized around monarchies, where one person, either the king or the queen, had all the power, while the people surrounding them were trying to have checks on that power. In the West, voting was first introduced in the 13th century, where a small percentage of the population were eligible to vote depending on land ownership. The right was slowly expanded, but even as late as 1832, in England, less than 10% of the population were eligible to vote. In colonial America, voting was restricted to land-owning men only.
Makes
because
sense.
Property ownership meant you paid taxes. So there was this belief that if you paid taxes, you had stake in the society. Universal male suffrage did not exist until the late 1800s, where many men had to fight and die in wars before they were granted that right. So while women did secure the right to vote in the 1920s, it was only about 50 years after all men got the right to vote, around the 1870s, depending on when the states passed the laws. The idea that men just gave themselves all the power is a feminist myth. Both men and women had to earn that right to vote because for most of history, people...
Again, I don't think women earned the right to vote. They were just given it to it by men that wanted to control things and, get more taxes.
People in power did not believe in distributing that power. This is not limited to America either. You can see that the timeline of universal suffrage is very similar across the world, meaning this was an evolution of trust in the people that all societies have had to go through. Lie number 3. Women were locked up in the home by men until feminism freed them. This is the feminist myth that men had to lock women up in the home because they're afraid of feminine power. This is such a misunderstanding and disconnection from what the world used to be like, because
100%, because they've never experienced it, right? This is how you screw a generation over, by instilling such propaganda into them that have not experienced what it was before. This is it feels like communism right now, because this is how North Korea, my country and stuff, kind of did it, but they actually killed people off so they can thin out the population, so the new generation only knew what they told them. Us, we have the power of the damn internet, and all of our population is still being taken up.
Really hard, not just for women, for everyone. For much of history, women stayed in the home out of pure necessity. Before electricity, washing machines, or running water, housework wasn't just about doing chores, it was survival. Hauling buckets of water, scrubbing clothes, making bread from grain that you milled yourself, sewing every piece of clothing that your family wore. These were all tasks that were absolute paramount to the family's survival. Women were doing all of this all while raising children without any modern medicine. So without antibiotics, hospitals, or vaccines. Meanwhile, it's not like the men were off to some cushy job in the boardroom. Instead, they were breaking their backs in the fields, in mines, in factories, just dealing with horrid working conditions. Or, let's be honest, dying in wars to protect their families as well as their nation. Everyone was fighting to survive. And then capitalism changed everything. The division of labor, which is one of the primary principles of capitalism, meant that people could now specialize, trade, and buy what they once had to make for themselves. This freed people up from survival work, and that freedom sparked the inventions that have built the world that we live in today.
True.
We are surrounded by these inventions.
And who made them? Men! Why? Because we love our damn wives and women. It's like, oh, how do you make this thing easier? I got you, babe. Let me make a blender. Let me put blades together, spinning really, really fast, and put a little thingy on it. And let's just chop shit up fast. That's men's ingenuity, guys. That is how men thought Damn, she's just spending too much time chopping this thing to small bits and it's not good enough. How do I fix this? Oh yeah! Let's create something.
200 years ago, I would have had to spend all my time churning butter, sewing clothes, making candles. Now I just buy them. It would have taken me 2 days to do my laundry. Now I just press a button. And that time that was spent behind survival work can now be turned into more productive work, more specialized work. The same has been true for men as well. Machines have taken over all of that back-breaking work. So infrastructure.
No, it did not. Stop it. It did not remove all the back-breaking work. It made a lot of this back-breaking work a little bit easier, but still a lot of back-breaking is still happening.
Work and building things has become so much easier, and people are now free to build, to think, and to create in ways that our forebears never could. Women have had biological limitations that have also kept them in the home. And you know what? Capitalism solved that too. In 1888, the first sanitary pad was created, which made it far easier for women to leave the house during their periods without the discomfort and the worry. So women were limited in the home because of survival, because of biology, but have been liberated by human ingenuity, by our forebears.
No, by men ingenuity. Men are the humans that created all this. Let's be more specific.
Conquering nature and building a safer society. We women were freed by civilization itself. Lie number 4. Marriage.
Which is men.
Marriage is slavery and children are a burden. And the only way that we could reach our highest potential was through our work. This cultural push has unfortunately created an epidemic of loneliness, nihilism, but worst of all, it has turned men and women into enemies. Those very same feminists now argue for government-paid maternity leave, subsidized childcare, and many other safety nets to improve the lives of women. But before feminism, a woman didn't need to turn to the government for help. Instead, she turned to her husband, to her family, to her community. Marriage is not this predatory institution where men get a servant for life. Instead, it has always been a contract between the sexes to team up and brave the challenging world. Men were the protectors who went out into the...
I don't hate her that much. I like her. There are just a few little moments that I was just like...
harsh world for resources, and women created the safety and comfort of the home where the man could retreat and they could raise children together. That was always the purpose of marriage.
Teamwork.
Stability through partnership. It's on the bedrock of this partnership that every community is formed and every nation has stood. This is why these calls for the government to solve so many social problems has become so loud. It's because right now in our nation, our sense of community is so weak. And that's because our families are so weak. And that's because our marriages are so weak.
Correct.
As of 2024, only 47% of households are headed up by a married couple, which is down from 79% in 1949. And 1 in 4 Americans, that's 91 million people, live alone. No wonder mental health, self-harm, and substance abuse are on the rise. Human beings were not meant to be alone. We were meant to live in families, to be part of communities, to find meaning through responsibility to...
I actually 100% agree with this. You know, I like MGTOW. I understand it's necessary, but MGTOW has also created a bigger seclusion of men and women and just people in general.
Others. And paternity support for women wasn't supposed to be funded by the government. No, instead, men were called upon to step up and provide for their families, since fatherhood was considered just as sacred a duty as motherhood. But feminism believes that dependence is oppression, obligation is oppression, responsibility is oppression, that what the individual, particularly a woman, is entitled to is a life that is completely unhooked from others, with no one to answer to, with no one to care for, and no one who truly needs her. Meanwhile, all of her needs should be met by a non-judgmental government. But that is not liberation. It's actually slow spiritual decay. There is this momentary pleasure of knowing that you have no responsibilities. But that pleasure comes at the price of purpose. And all that's left at the end of all of that pleasure is loneliness.
Yeah, because now women have no purpose. They don't strive for anything. They just strive to consume.
There are plenty of imperfections in marriage, and that's expected because people themselves are imperfect.
Sure.
But when it's done correctly, when the two people are oriented correctly, marriage gives people a life of purpose, stability, and love.
I don't think you should have used this picture, but...
And children offer this path of rebirth, continuity, and meaning. I'm not saying that women shouldn't work. If that's what calls to you, absolutely you should. All I'm saying is that you should not sacrifice your family life at the altar of your career. Because the truth is that meaning comes from being needed, from forming bonds, from creating family and community. And none of that is possible without self-sacrifice. And also sacrificing your independence. But in exchange for that price, you get the opportunity to build something so much bigger than yourself. And that is the true power of marriage. Lie number 5. Sex work is empowering for women. Feminism believes...
Damn, this one really is huge because, 1 in 5 women are engaged in this industry? 25%, which, holy cow, for this type of industry, that's just way too many people.
Believes that if women are unhappy, it's society's fault. In this case, if women are unhappy participating in sex work, whether that's through prostitution or making explicit content, the problem isn't the act itself. The problem is that society unfairly looks down on it. To correct this, there have been many campaigns to argue that sex work is real work, and women should be applauded for making content on OF because they are owning their sexuality. Just like the rest of the feminist lies that we've been told, the intention is to help women, but does it really? The adult industry doesn't actually empower women, and it never has. It has only ever existed to exploit them for money. There are endless stories of young women getting lured into creating this type of content with false promises of fame. And
that was the stories back in the day, right? Of women getting lured into the industry. Now women are literally waiting till they turn 18 to jump in.
Money, only to be locked into predatory cycles where consent is extremely blurred, filming conditions are absolutely horrid, and worst of all, their bodies get turned into a commodity that they no longer own. While women are more in control on platforms like OF, they really join a platform like that convinced by these stories of the top 1% where women are making millions of dollars, only to find themselves crossing their own personal boundaries to make pennies. All for what? The industry codifies women. It has turned their bodies into products.
Yep.
And it trains men to see intimacy as something that can be purchased. And engaging in this kind of transaction, both for...
This is very true. A lot of men do seem to think that intimacy itself can be purchased. Yeah, you can pay a woman to leave, but that's not true intimacy, by the way, guys.
Men and for women robs them of any self-respect, because once something sacred can be bought, it stops being sacred. And no amount of cultural acceptance can...
It's like prayers. Can you buy prayers in a sense? No, you at least you shouldn't be able to. Right? You get prayers. People pray for you because they're worried about you. You can't be just paying people to pray for you. How is that going to work?
Actually change that. Loud declarations that sex work is empowering might drown out your inner voice that hates being something that can be purchased, but it won't ever fix that instinctive shame that comes from knowing that your self-worth has been reduced to a price. In order for a person to respect themselves, some things have to be above money, like our integrity, like our convictions, but above all, our body. And that's why a person for sale, no matter how much money they make, eventually feels worthless. So why has this feminist ideology taken such a hold? Just the single issue of abortion proves that women are possessed by this ideology. Abortion has turned women into single issue voters because many of them believe that a child isn't a gift, it's a curse. And that is part of the clue there. Ideologies that sell victim narratives take a hold in people because they want to see themselves as a victim. And a victim is someone that a society should aim to protect, but also look at them as justified in whatever action that they want to take as recompense for those slights. All of this really translates to getting a blank check to do whatever the hell you would like, and never needing to explain yourself or own up to your own mistakes, because it's always society's fault. It's always men's fault. That is the relationship with the self and with reality that feminism is peddling. And
all right, so she wasn't just blaming men.
Honestly, that sounds so good to people. No personal responsibility, an external excuse for everything wrong in my life, and I can do whatever the hell I want and never have to own up to any of the consequences. Sign me up. This is why when you try to argue with the specifics of feminist ideology, the true believers won't be willing to change their mind. Because underneath it all they want to do is see themselves as victims. They're locked in.
Damn, that was solid. I actually very enjoyed that. I was a little iffy on her trying to like, oh yeah, men have Peter Pan. And I was like, what? But I kind of get where she was going. But she wasn't blaming men on it. But she just gave, men have this ability to not worry about, starting families anymore because women don't care about families, right? They don't care about these things. Why should men care about these things? Please like, subscribe, comment down below. I really appreciate that. And catch you guys next time. Ciao.